Welcome back to Conversations with Yemi Bimbo and, of course, Pelumi David. We had a very interesting conversation earlier that even lingered even off camera. And, it's been so interesting hearing her thoughts on social media and a few things she said that I had never thought about, especially looking at it from a Christian's perspective, being a Christian content creator. And she said that it's the pressure to be a content creator as a Christian is a lot more because, first of all,
You don't get a lot of money from
the
it.
money is, yes, the fact that, okay, if I decide to, because it's a business, it's something that one can do now as a content creator. But if I'm pushing it as a Christian, I'm pushing Christian content. It's not what people readily want. So how did the money come in? I never thought about that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she said Christian influencers are not proud to say publicly that I'm a Christian, which I found very, really, I'm a Christian. I should be proud to say, that our background, like Jesus said, if you're not proud of me. But hearing her thoughts, and I'm really interested in that. So why would you say that?
I think I'm speaking from a Nigerian/African background, and I think in Africa and in Nigeria, being a Christian is just tied with tradition and religion, and it becomes boring. So African churches are boring to my generation, for example, and I mean that in the sense of when we go to church, it's like we're watching a movie. Like we're just listening to things coming to our ears. There's no interaction. There's no sense of community. I'll say that because in the Bible, Jesus talked about being in community with others. I know in Acts talked about they shared things with each other, not just the pastor speaking and speaking and speaking, but the congregation was also sharing. So there was community. Like community is communion, as we're talking, conversation, not just receiving, which is good. It's not bad, but I just think that's just one aspect of church. And I think in Nigeria or in Africa, it has been amplified so much that it becomes so boring, and is people are just expecting it over and over again. There's nothing new except okay, maybe you're having a church event, but apart from that, a Sunday service is a regular Sunday service. So there's no point for a lot of people to go to a regular Sunday service.
It's so interesting because I'm a pastor, my husband is a pastor, she's a PK, like they say it. And so what you're saying is the connection is like there's a disconnect, right?
Yes.
So how then, because I know that, there's a place of coming to church, attending church to hear. But there's also a place of community, and that's what she's saying, where you want to feel like you're part of something. You're part of that, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think we African churches are boring? Really? So is it like it's just being passed on, or if I would say some African church leaders they don't understand what it means to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of African church leaders are just too religious. Like, we respect and honor our church leaders, but I think there's a place of, especially when you grow in ministry, I feel they should always come back to the Bible and go to the roots. Like, church is not supposed to be complicated. Christianity is not supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to be simple. Like, when Jesus went to the temple and he scattered everywhere, it was because of the chaos in the church that he scattered, because he felt like it was hard for people to come into the temple
access,
and to have a relationship with God. So I think we are heading to that part where church is becoming chaotic and
too complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just,
I get that.
Fellowshipping together.
I really do get that. I really get that. And I'm happy she said it, because the truth is, and we just need to come to, we're saying this off camera, that we in our generation need to listen to the younger generation. It gets to a point where I've said it before that I'm going to write a book called The 21st Century Pharisee. Because sometimes we as, especially those of us that were, Christians from childhood, we know Christ, we are pastors, we are leaders. You may not be a pastor, but you know God. You've been serving God for a long time. It gets to a point where you have to ask yourself, have I become a Pharisee?
Yeah.
Have I become religious? And that's what happened with the Pharisees in the
Yeah.
Bible. At the time that they were leaders, they were the ones that knew the law, and it was okay. That was that was how, and even Jesus recognized that. But Jesus then came and introduced relationship. Jesus came and introduced access.
Yeah.
That there shouldn't be any too much protocol, too
Exactly.
much religiosity, if I will put it that way, to hearing from me. And that's why he told the children, let the children come, let the sinner come, let the, and they were having, Jesus was a party goer.
Okay, like for example, I attend a church in school, and for in the mornings, I didn't know this at first until I went for like a couple of weeks. The ushers and the greeters at the front and the back are pastors.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they are talking to you when you're going in, welcome to church. And you wouldn't know they're dressed like anybody else. Obviously, in the West, most pastors don't wear like suits or so they're dressed like anybody else. And you just say, oh, thank you. You wouldn't know who's talking to you. Maybe after you while you see them on stage, you're like, oh, that's a pastor. And when you're going out, they'll be like, oh, I hope you enjoyed the service. And sometimes you can even have a conversation of, oh, what you thought about the service or the whole ambience. So I think things like that remind, because I think a lot of African church leaders, it might be controversial, but like I think they put too much attention on the title, and we respect that God called them and called them to give us things that we might not be able to see, but they're also, let's just say, part of us.
Yeah.
And I think just knowing that they're also still part of
Oh,
us
yeah.
is important so that they don't elevate themselves in a way that makes people feel disconnected to church and also can affect their own relationship with God.
Yeah, I
So,
totally agree. So it's on us as the pastors or the church leaders to take this to heart. And I really appreciate what she said about the fact that they are part of us. As church leaders, we are human. We are sons of God. We are sons like, I'm a daughter of God, like she is a daughter of God. I'm not just a pastor being born. No, God sees me as his child, and then, but, so it's like, I think it's African culture where the honor that we give to titles
yeah.
is we hand it down to church and to Christian communities as well, where that's why for in our own church, for instance, because it was something I noticed in a service we had, and then I saw a church as well at the same time online, and our own church, for instance, the chairs we use, for instance, we have, there's no pastor's chair, or there's no, all the chairs are the same. We sit down with the same chairs, and I'm not saying it's bad, but we did that intentionally to help ourselves, to tell ourselves that we are not a special set
Yeah.
of people in that sense. Yes, we are called, but we are still human. We are still individuals. We are still a parent. I'm still a son. I'm still, a daughter. So that was just a little thing that we did,
Yeah, 'cause
that made it, a bit, what, I'm not just a special, so they be honoring me
Yeah,
specially,
because I feel sometimes when I see other pastors and how they might really put attention on the title, it feels like in my head I think, okay, maybe they feel that they fast track to heaven for them, like the pastors, because of the way. And it's not so, like, we're all the congregation. Jesus is the only, like, Jesus is the teacher, is the head of the church. And I think remembering that we're the congregation, anybody can teach, anybody can have a revelation about a particular part of the Bible. Like, so it's just,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because sometimes when we don't hear this, we feel we are the only ones that God can speak through.
Yeah.
And then you just get that sense of, entitlement, or a sense of I'm a special person because I'm the one. It was like that in the Old Testament, where there were certain people that God will speak through as priests, as prophets. So it was okay at that time. That was why when Jesus came and changed the standards of
Yeah.
behavior. That was why he was persecuted by the Pharisees.
Yeah.
Because he gave us access to him. That's why, going back to what you said, Because the African church, let me use African church, has the mindset of, maybe not everyone, most churches have the mindset of the man of God is special, right? Let me just use it that way. So they expect certain kinds of standards. They even put him, because you're already behaving as if you're a special person.
Yeah.
So they're expecting that you shouldn't make a mistake in the first
Yeah.
place, right? So that translates to in a casual, let me use that word, please permit me, a casual believer, that, oh, the man of God, the pastor, for instance, he shouldn't make a mistake. If he makes a mistake, he's judged. How
Yeah.
much more me, that I'm just a normal person? Do you get what I'm trying to say? That's why it's harder for people to say proudly, especially younger generation, I'm a Christian, and I want to say boldly, even in spite of the fact that I make. So if you make a mistake, how does
I
that
think
affect
there
you?
are two levels of that make it harder for Christian leaders. I think it's the idea that they are perfect and also the cancel culture. So the idea that they are perfect means that when they make a mistake, the cancel culture is harder on
What's
them.
cancel culture? You have to.
Cancel culture is okay. If you say something controversial on Twitter or Instagram, they can cancel you. They said, "Oh, you're cancelled," or they'll unfollow you, or things
Okay,
like
that you
that.
block you, that this person is
Yeah,
not
don't
okay. So
endorse them again.
yeah,
So I think when men of God make mistake, the cancel culture is harder on them because of their higher expectation on
yeah.
them. And I think it's also important that leaders or Christian leaders and Christian content creators understand this, because they will also be careful of what they put online, and they'll also be like deal with social media more wisely than the regular person,
Yeah.
because already of the expectation that as a Christian there's a certain level of standard of how you should behave, and then because of that the cancel culture might hit on me harder than the regular person, let's say that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, of course, there's no perfect human being. And I think it's also important that we start showing, not maybe with wisdom, but start showing and start expressing some of our
Imperfections.
imperfections. Let me
Yeah.
put it that way. Even publicly, because of course, social media, everybody packages on social media, right?
Yeah.
And then the reality that we present is that we don't fight in my family, we don't argue in my family, we love God, we pray every day, we fast, we speak in tongues, and that's the reality that social media has brought. We put up what people want to hear and what people want to see. But then when we get to places, content or messages that says, you know what, I had an argument with my husband. I was angry with him. I didn't want to talk to him. In fact, I canceled him. But I had to, the Holy Spirit, spoke to me. I was angry. And then we found a way of conversing. Or, just saying that alone helps you say, okay, she's a pastor, but she said she didn't pray yesterday, or she was angry with her husband. It just makes you real. People just
Yeah.
connect better because that's the experience. I was a teenager. I wasn't. Yeah, there were times when I didn't read my Bible every day. There are times, But so sometimes we need to say that so that people don't just, like you said, disconnect when you feel that this person doesn't understand my world, understand my space. I can't talk to them.
Yeah, and I think going back to what I said about African churches being boring, I think a lot of Christians need to project that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you have a boring life, or that you're just reading your Bible and praying 24 hours a day. Because I think there's a subconscious idea in lots of young people that, okay, once they are full on Christian, let's say that a lot of things, their life will have ended basically. So I think we need to project that idea of you can go out to the cinema. I don't know. There's just
Yeah.
because you just see like a lot of Christians is either they're going to church, they're doing devotional,
Shay,
and
you're
it's good. It's
hearing.
good to do that. But I think showing real life that you have like
Yeah.
life, like God is, I don't know how to explain it, but
I
God is supposed
get
to be
I
in every moment and every day. And just because you're not praying or reading the Bible doesn't mean that God is not there.
So imagine, what do you
And
think if Jesus were to come in this generation?
I think just be having fun. I
Yes,
think just be going to the
because in
cinema.
at the time when he
Yeah,
ca- of course at the
exactly.
time when we read New Testament, he went to a wedding.
Exactly.
He went for dinner. He went to, he spoke to a sinner. That means maybe perhaps he went to a club or something. But that's the truth,
Yeah.
right? Because and he wouldn't have judged people. So we don't see it that way because we feel Jesus can. No, Jesus is not a boring
Yeah,
God.
I think
Yeah.
we should have fun. Like, I think this African, we're just religious. Like, oh, we just pray in the morning, read the Bible, you go out.
Even
I don't know.
devotion is very boring. Can be very boring.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
even doing evangelism is boring in Africa. But in like, we just have fun. Like, it's our life. God is. We're supposed to be abiding in God and Him abiding in us. So that means in every way of our lives, it should reflect God. But it doesn't mean that we should stop what we're
Absolutely.
stop having fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. We project God in church. Church is just a minute part of our lives, church going, but we have other
Yeah.
parts of our lives. We have work, we have our social lives. So we can have fun. We can go to the cinema. We go to the cinemas, we play, we work, we go for, I like, going for party, dinners,
Yeah.
events, you know and parties, and we dance, things like that. So it's fun, but we can relate. So we go to a cinema, we go to an event, we see something that gets us talking about even our Christian lives. That is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, guys, we've had a very interesting conversation today. I've learned a lot from them, and like I said, we need to talk more to the younger generation. They of course need to hear from us as well, learn from us, and as well be learning from them because they are seeing things from different perspectives. They are Christians. The younger generation love God as well. They love
Yeah.
God as much as we love God. So let's not push our own perspective of God down their throat. Let us be willing to hear from them and hear what they think about God and also learn from them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll be better for it. So, thank you, Pelumi, for joining us.
Thank you, Mimi.
We hope we were a blessing or, gave us some insightful things to think about and ponder about. And I'm praying that we'll keep, like we always say, the generation will be better than us. The younger
Amen.
generation, preceding generation, will do better than us. So thank you for joining us. We are looking forward to having you a next episode again for another interesting topic. God bless you.
Bye.